We wanted to talk to you this weekend about Christ consciousness and the awakening of that consciousness. So in the previous communication, we spoke about how the dark has infiltrated the sort of New Age, etc., created a false duality, if you like, but also what the truth is about your empowerment and self-responsibility. And we spoke about that. But now we would like to talk about something to do with Christ consciousness, because this consciousness resides in everything. One could call it part of the universal laws or light codes. And if you look at the message of the one Jesus, who is the representative of that consciousness, you could clearly see that his teaching was that of love. Kindness, healing, sharing, not competitive, sharing. And what is interesting is that his love was so profound for humankind, for humanity, that it is still felt over 2,000 years later. How is that possible? Because his consciousness, Christ consciousness, resides in all living things. And when you awaken to that consciousness, you awaken to his teachings. Now, the confusion and the resistance to that has come through all religions. Because religion hijacked the consciousness to use it. So, Christ consciousness is a very powerful consciousness, and we just demonstrated that. Someone who lived for 33 years on earth over 2,000 years ago, you still feel, you want to connect with it. You still honor it in some way. You never think of it as something that is harmful. Ever. So it shows you how powerful it is. Now, the churches and religion knew that, and they hijacked it. So what did they do? Okay. We need to go into a couple of things here to explain all of this a little bit. Okay. So if you look at the ley lines of the planet, they cross over male and female, electromagnetic, every meter. But every sort of, let's say, in certain parts of those ley lines, those crossovers are more powerful, but they're often empowered by waterways. So the waterways that run the sacred wells, they used to be called, were all closed down by the Catholic Church. And these waterways go under the seabed and move on to other areas of the planet. So they cover the whole planet. And they recognize that these waterways, this was actually in Lemuria, it moved into Atlantis, but Christ also understood that. They recognize that water actually holds information and memory. The same with your pineal gland, which has water in the center of it. It holds Just a drop of water can hold more memory than the biggest computer you have on the planet at the moment. Can hold more information. And Christ knew that. So Christ's consciousness was placed in these sacred waters, and that's why the church cut them off. And those sacred waters, where they also cross over, if they cross over where these ley lines cross over at the same place, there will be a church or a holy building, whether it's a mosque or, something. They will place a holy building there. Why do they do that? Because they're very aware that if they place a building there, whatever is taught will echo out onto the land and become reality. Because these are points of power. They are not points of creation, but they are points of power. And these points of power use the water and the ley lines to cement consciousness onto the planet. So they placed those buildings on top of the strong points of Christ consciousness to use that light. Now remember, darkness feeds off the light, doesn't it? To use that light. And what did they place in as a symbol of that energy, of their love to him? Is hideous, really, because when you really start looking at the symbology of this, you will see the truth very rapidly. They placed an image of a man being crucified and dying. So they imprinted the collective consciousness of the world with pain and suffering if you're gifted and talented, if you are loving and kind. So what did they do? The darkness coveted the light. It smothered itself over the light and said, I own you. And I am going to use your power, your consciousness for my bidding. And that's what they did. And so you will see over these years, many people have come forward and said, this happened to me as a result of the church, etc., etc. And the church started to crumble, but not completely. The next will be the mosques, actually, and the synagogues. We tell you, religion as you know it will not be the same. Because they have coveted your hearts. How confusing do you think it is for young souls, for children, for young souls, adults that are young souls, etc., easily influenced, to feel the love of Christ's teachings in their very spirit, to feel it, to be drawn to a church, to be drawn to a mosque, seeking out that love, to be drawn to a synagogue, seeking out that union, that connection, that love, only to be abused, to be told they're inferior of the man preaching to them. They must come under the laws that they say are God's, which are not, some of them. They're not, right? And not only that, the very religion that was supposed to be home for them was the very thing that abused them, abused their children in every way, and abused their psyche in every way. For if you go to the church, they're constantly saying, I am guilty, please forgive me. What are they guilty for? So they're making you feel shame for being okay. What is the lowest vibration? Shame. Okay, you go to a mosque. What are you praying for? The death of all people who are not Muslim, who don't believe in Allah. Right? So they are praying for death. So how is that hard? They are abusing the people within. And it is the same for the synagogues. Now, we're not suggesting that all of them, because obviously there are light beings that have gone into these religions with the intention from their heart to spread love. They've often found it very difficult, very hard to reside in, but they've created small communities perhaps where they've been loving and kind and set up a positive vibration and been very charitable. But most of the money on the planet is in the religions, we can tell you that. So if religions are there to help the poor, why are so many billions still poor? Because you've all been giving money. So how is that possible? Because they harnessed the Christ consciousness and tried to convince you that that consciousness represented pain, suffering, shame, guilt. In His name, in God's name, that's what they did. And what you're seeing at the moment is an awakening of that consciousness without religion. And there are many of you who feel Christ, but they don't, you know, okay, I'm not going into that church, that synagogue, or that mosque. I don't want to feel like that. I don't want to be trapped. I don't want to. So you are, in a way, really honest with yourselves because you know it's there, but you're not honest with the planet because you're ashamed to speak about that connection because you don't want to be tied to those religions. You don't want to be in the same energy or genre as those religions because you understand they are hideous, they are damaging, they are controlling, they're actually evil. Fascinating how they hijacked the Christ consciousness. You know, it's interesting because what you're understanding from this is energy. Your intention is what makes it dark or light. Christ consciousness is an energy. It does not discern whether you're good or you're bad. It simply is that energy. And it's up to you to choose how you use it. And it has the vibration of love so great. So this is all related to truth, right? Because let's say, and we know this is hard for some of you to even comprehend, but let's say you are from the darkness and you really believe that the truth is that Lucifer is king, and you know, these children that you're sacrificing, etc., are honored. They're honored because they're giving up their life for you so that you can get more power. So they are actually honored to do this. So you're doing a good thing for them. And you're convinced that that's the truth. So is that not, in their eyes, a form of love? Because it's what they like to do. Oh, I love doing that. I love making children scream. I love it when the blood comes out. I love the look in their eyes when they're just about to die. I love being able to hold another person's life in my hands and then feel it slip away. They actually like it, right? And we know that's hard for you to perceive, but it's what they love. And yet on the other side, you've got someone else who says, well, you know, I really love it when I make people happy. And I love it when people are healed, when they feel safe. I love being able to make people feel empowered I love being able to be of service by fixing their broken leg or educating them on their finances and helping them to feel safe and secure and free, creating freedom. Oh, I love doing this. So, isn't love a vibration that is actually neutral? It doesn't pick a side. And this is what is very difficult to comprehend. So when you move into 5D, you begin to understand that love is an energy. Christ consciousness is part of that love. It is an energy. It does not discern whether you're male and female if you have more value. It just is love. So does the cow have less value than the wealthy man? In the eyes of love, no. And that's what Christ consciousness was placed here for. And Jesus died when that was his human name. Okay, Jesus was his human name. Why was he given the name Christ when he died? Because he represented the Christ consciousness. That consciousness was already in existence before he incarnated. He was the conduit of it, just as all of you are the conduit of whatever consciousness you represent. And for a lot of you, it's Christ consciousness. But you reject it because you don't like religion. And because of the collective consciousness says to you, well, you know, if you're going to believe in Jesus, you best go down to the church. Because that's where you go to honor him. That's where you go to prove it. And we're saying you don't need to prove it to anyone by going to a religion. Honor it in yourself. And the beautiful thing is, the most important thing about this is when you acknowledge it and honor it in yourself and surrender it to it, the most amazing things will happen. Because it's your resistance to that love that's stopping you from being fully empowered. So that's what we wanted to say about the Christ consciousness. And there is a awakening of this on the planet. There is an awakening of knowing that consciousness. And we can tell you the reason why is because many of you who were Essenes and were incarnated at the time of Jesus' life are present today. Chose to incarnate at this time, but chose not to be involved in religion to that extent. Perhaps many of you have looked into many different religions out of curiosity. So you chose to incarnate to be the ambassador for that consciousness. Don't resist it. And what's even more interesting is as you embrace it and acknowledge it, more information will come out about Jesus' life. New things will be found. Because the truth has not been revealed, not fully. So as you embrace more of the truth of yourself, more of the truth of the darkness will come out so that people can make a choice. Because as long as it's hidden, they are being manipulated into making a choice. And we know that frustrates many of you. Do not fall into the trap of resisting Christ consciousness because you feel you don't want to be associated with the church, because you know that the church has done indecent, horrible things. And in fact, we could talk about what's under the Vatican, etc. But you can do a little bit of research and find out about that. But what we can tell you is that the tunnels are real. What's under them is real. Children are being transported, and adults being transported through those tunnels. And if you look at the symbology of religion, you will see there's not a lot of holiness in there. The symbol of the Mass is cannibalism, drinking the blood, eating the body, repeating it over and over. How much fun do they get out of your innocence when you go there and partake of this sort of thing? And then you hand over your money, and that pays for their weekend activities. And it's interesting that religions don't pay taxes, so there's no known record of precisely how much money they have. Real estate, businesses, the slavery market, drugs, all of these things they run, all religions. We're not just saying one. We are speaking of all of them. And this has been going on for a very long time. And they have been harvesting the energy. That's what they live off, the energy. Do not give it to them. Give it to yourself. So that's what we wanted to say about the Christ consciousness, and we will perhaps communicate a little bit more in a few weeks about what's going on in other ways. So thank you for your time, your energy.
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
I would just like to ask, your daughter Susan started 24 days ago free live Facebook meditations.
Yeah.
So it's every day we gather in our time in the morning, and there's a big group of people, and these meditations are ongoing also in the future. And what can you say? What is the effect of these meditations, of this group?
Well, it's interesting because as a result of that group, other groups started. You might have seen other worldwide groups start. It sort of kicked off like a domino effect. So you're seeing lots of other groups formulate. And as this is a battle of consciousness, it's precisely what you're all doing, is placing your consciousness with one vision, one intention, and one heart. And we understand because we are there. We are joined with you as part of the councils. So you are utilizing the collective universal energy and anchoring it. And so, you know, call upon that energy, call upon us to assist your vibration, to stabilize it, to recalibrate it, to um, upgrade it, if you like. You know, ask for what you want. You see, people ask for, a lot of the time, they ask for money, mostly, objects, to buy objects. But actually, if you upgraded your energy and recalibrated it, you'd probably earn more money. But because you know, most people run off what you're taught on earth, you see it as a most powerful thing, when in fact your consciousness is the most powerful thing. And our daughter's quite aware of that. And so that is why it is a very powerful group, because what you've got in that group are people who are committed to the consciousness of others and to the planet. They actually, this is what they were born for, what they incarnated for, this moment, this time. We're not saying specifically this meditation group, but what we're saying is for this time. Yeah? So coming together as a collective will have a sort of an interesting effect, because when you come together, you start becoming unity consciousness. So a gift one might have might trigger another person's gift. So the safety and security one might have might trigger the group's safety and security. The finances another one might have might raise the collective consciousness of finances for the whole group, you see. So what you're doing is bringing your energies together and raising all of your frequencies. Now, when you listen to the teachings of Jesus, he says, if two or more gather in my name, it will be multiplied. Miracles will happen. And what he means by that, if two people meet, energetically that can become 8, 16, and so on. So the more people you have, the bigger impact, because each one of those people holds the vibration for thousands and thousands of people. So coming together as a group like that is actually creating a vibration within the collective consciousness of the earth to inspire others to know the truth, to seek it out. And the truth will set them free. And what you're doing is you're activating your true currency, which is your consciousness, which is your power. And you're doing that collectively because you're triggering each other when you do it consistently. And of course, you have those that do it at different times because they can't join in at that time, but they are also adding to it, and it's also having an effect on them. When you have those that come in and out of it, so they might do 1 week and then forget about it for a week, they're not very consistent, they're not very committed, they're still learning, they're still understanding. You know, they're still finding their way of who they are, and that's okay too, because maybe they can only tolerate once a week in that energy, and they need a week to recalibrate themselves and settle. So whatever, that's what we mean. Everybody has an impact. Everyone is contributing. Everyone has a role, and everyone, you know, just that one person that comes that one day of that 1 week could be the thing that tips it over the edge. And something is revealed that day or the next day that brings out such a truth. Could you imagine if, let's say, the police invaded beneath the Vatican? And that was televised, what was actually going on under there and what they were storing under there. That would be a powerful thing. Because a lot of people don't believe it until they see it. So what the group is doing is it's empowering the truth to be revealed. And if you look from the time the group started to now, a lot more people are coming out and saying, they're asking me to falsify information, or I found this document and it's not true. And this is their intention. I found this document and it's not pleasant. This is what they're up to. So people are coming out because they're feeling that love, that consciousness within them that's making them honor themselves and humanity. And what you're doing is you're moving out 3D, 4D. You're moving it out. You're creating space for 5D, a landmass really for 5D. And they know it. That's why some of the people in the group get attacked. They know it. And they use others to attack them. So that's a good question, yeah. It's having quite a strong impact. Do you have any other questions?
No, thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you for asking that question. It was very good. So we will leave this group this day in our love and our light and our truth. And we thank you for allowing us to share in your energies and be of some assistance to you.